Property Graduate is the show for aspiring property developers and investors to win a life-changing opportunity that money can't buy. The prize is twofold: forming a property company with renowned property guru John Howard and owning 50% of the shares. John is one of the most experienced property developers and investors in the UK today. With almost 4 decades experience in the industry, he's been there and done that, having purchased and sold around 4,000 homes, apartments and developments. This savvy businessman is putting £1 million of his own money into the new company so the winner can buy and develop a property. With a 50% stake in it, they'll automatically receive a 50% share of the profit and potentially have John as a business partner for life. You're watching Property Graduate. In the first 2 episodes of Property Graduate, we saw 20 confident people compete to impress John, Helen and Fiona in the first stage, called the interviews. The panel picked the 10 they felt would be in with a chance of becoming Property Graduate 2022 and John's new business partner. In the last episode, we saw the first 5 face Helen and Fiona. They were Hamish Douglas, Emma Howitt, Kelly Walker, Daniel Salvato and James Steer. In this one, we see how the final 5 get on and find out who will go through to the final, called the deal.
Neil, what have you got then?
I've got a commercial building in the heart of Portsmouth town centre. It's got 3 floors with prior approval for conversion into residential flats for around 55 flats. Reasonably confident. I've done my price comparables for the area. I've got some confidence I can price it up correctly.
What have you got and how's it going?
So I've got a semi-detached house in Purley. And it's completely different to what I usually look at. I recently have been mainly looking at commercial conversions or subdivides and splits, where you can easily look at property and how you can break it up. So this is a little bit different, and it's something that typically when I look at planning gain, I look at something that's already existing and how I can work with the existing building rather than something new.
So this is really out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, as soon as I looked at the plan of it and the layout of it, I thought, well, that's not something I'd usually do or I look at it. So it's interesting kind of looking at a different set of plans, a different idea, and how you can, adventure or work it out and how you'll be able to build it, cost it, and also where there's an existing part of the building. And the previous planning permission that's been obtained was building something new on the side of it, is then trying to work out how your refurbishment cost is going to split across the whole building.
Are you feeling confident then, or are you actually really nervous?
Usually I would say I'm quietly confident, but it's not what I usually look at. So yeah, and it's in a completely different area to where I work. So I usually only deal within about 15 minutes of my front door, so it's a little bit different.
Right, well, good luck.
Thank you.
Wendy, you've come all the way back from Edinburgh back here to do this. What are you looking at and how is it going for you?
Okay, so I'm looking at a block of garages, and it's currently got planning for conversion into 3, or demolition and then build 3 new build houses. So yeah, I like new builds. Not familiar with the area or the English way, if you like. So just getting my head round. Obviously the numbers are pretty much going to be the same. So
Emma, what have you got and how is it going?
So I've got a commercial development in Southend-on-Sea. There's lots of opportunities with it, so I'm working out which is the best opportunity for it. I've actually never costed up a commercial kind of deal before, so it's all brand new, but I'm really, really liking it, and yeah, I'm liking the deal.
So Michael, what are you appraising, and is this something you're familiar with?
Not massively familiar. I've done a commercial to residential conversion before. What I'm analysing here is quite a big building, 3 parts, mixed use, commercial and residential. There's planning permission for a part of the building already, and I'm just trying to analyse that first before I go about analysing the other areas of the building itself.
First into the room is Neil Wise.
Hi Neil,
Hi.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
So we're at round 2, which is a little more around the technical analysis.
Yes.
And looking at a deal for John and quickly being able to appraise it and suggesting what you would pay for this.
Yes.
So assuming that I was John,
Yes.
how would you, taking this explain to him exactly what this deal is involved with.
It is in Portsmouth town centre, in the heart of the town. It's a commercial building where it's got, it's right in the heart, so it's got Sainsbury's all across the bottom floor, and then you've got 3 floors of commercial. The 3 floors have been granted planning permission for 54 flats with an extra 2 potential on the first floor as well. So it's, planning granted for a conversion. It's just the 3 floors that are for sale and not that's a separate lot on the Sainsbury's. So it's just the 3 floors of conversion.
And what would you pay for it and why?
My figures came back that I would pay 2.15 million for it. It was up at a guide price at auction of 1.5 million plus, but I would go to 2.1 based on obviously the GDV on the costs, worked it back to meeting the 30%, would be 2.15 as the maximum if I wanted that 30% GDV.
And in your total costs,
yes.
So you've got total costs of 5.5-ish.
Yes.
Does that include your purchase price?
That includes the purchase price as well.
Okay. Neil's numbers, I'm really pleased to report, add up. Your GDV is somewhat different to what John was looking at.
Okay.
Do you want to know what John's was?
Yep.
So yours was 7.1.
So my GDV, I've got 30.11.
30%.
Sorry, 30% is the profit, sorry.
Yeah. But your GDV, your end value of the project,
oh,
you have
right, sorry.
7.1.
Yeah,
right.
7.1, yes.
Yeah. John was 4.4. So you're punching well above John's numbers. Talk us through how you got to that.
So I've got 54 flats plus another 2 that was in for planning additional on the first floor. So I based it on 56 flats.
Okay.
The total square footage for those 56 flats was around 18,600 square foot.
Right.
So I did my research on what flats were going for in the town centre there over the last year, including conversions.
Yeah.
And they were going for, I took about 6 comparables, and they were coming in at an average around £365 a square foot. I based that on.
So you did a global total square foot times
I did it by
square foot.
I did it by floor, and then I did it by 365 pounds per square foot. I did increase it slightly there was a 2 with terraces on there as well, and I increased the price because there was 12 parking spaces. Couldn't see anything further to do with that space, so I added that onto that as well.
Did you have any concerns about the amenity space?
It was broken down, the space just for all the flats. It was broken down one by one, so we had the breakdown of 54 flats, and the space each flat had been allocated. So I took it as though the amenity space was discounted from that because it got the breakdown of the flats.
It's just that some of them were, quite small, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, but looking at comparables, there was still 1 and 2 bedroom conversions in the town for the same money. Price
with
per
the
square
same
foot.
space.
Yeah.
So 29.9 square metres.
Yeah, and I did look at what it's sold
19.6, flat 26 is 19.6 square metres.
Yeah, still a demand for even small flats, especially by investors as well, because they're generally good
yes,
return.
but can they be financed?
Yeah, I mean, the finance on mortgages is more difficult, but there's a lot of cash investors still out there as well that get the good yields.
And you wouldn't worry that narrowed your exit market?
No, not at all. I looked at what it went for at auction as well, which was a lot higher than the figure of 2.15. So I didn't just base my figures on what the auction price went for. Otherwise, I'd have just been inflating all of my prices. I went by what I thought was realistic. Otherwise, that person might have overpaid. But it did give me more confidence at 2.15 that my GDV was right. So, or John was right.
Okay, and your exit then you're saying is build it out and sell it?
Yeah. It'd be ideal for first-time buyers, investors, and potentially retired people near amenities as well. Professionals, it's quite near the station.
Sorry, you said first-time buyers?
Yeah.
but you want them to pay cash because of the...
No, the investment we talked about cash because the commercial mortgages are harder for buy-to-let investment on it. It's not as much, I find, for the first-time buyer market. I did also consider straight away looking at to see whether I could put 2 additional floors on there, but I quickly found that had been applied for and declined, so I then didn't take that into consideration any further.
And how long did you allow for, so you've got finance costs of 900 grand-ish.
Yeah.
How long did you allow for that?
I did that over 2 years, 10% first year and then 10% on that amount plus the first year's interest as well.
And then what about the period to sell it?
Yeah, so I think I could have gone a little bit longer on that. I didn't take that into consiration, but being an agent,
surely as an agent,
I'll be trying to sell a load off a plan beforehand,
yeah,
so I'll try and bring that forward and also try and phase the sales in different floors. Depends on the inconvenience, obviously, of the build and how you would work that. But if I could get the cash flow in quicker by selling a certain amount or deals to multiple sales to investors, there's a lot of money from abroad for number of units, so I'll be trying to do that as well.
And what about building warranties? You factored that into your costs?
I didn't factor that into my costs, no. So, no, that was one
I caught you out on something.
He got me on that one.
Very thorough. We've not seen that much paperwork of anybody, have we? So, good job, Neil. And we will see if you make it through to the next round or not.
Thank you very much.
Later.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Next to face Helen and Fiona is Tristan Gordon.
So, hello, Tristan. Welcome back to round 2. Do you want to tell us a little bit, a brief description of the deal that you've been given?
I was given a semi-detached 3-bedroom house in Purley, just outside of Croydon, which probably isn't actually that far from where I used to live. I used to live in Balham, so it wasn't too far away. It was a bit of an interesting project compared to the stuff that I usually look at, because typically I've been looking at existing buildings that we can, as I've said before, subdivide, split into 2, title split existing units. Or where I've been looking at commercial conversions recently is working with them inside an existing envelope. So it presented a bit more of a challenge to me in looking at kind of the refurbishment costs of it, because you've already got part of an existing building and then you're then putting on quite a large extension and converting the rest of the building. So there's a little bit of a challenge with that. And I've got to admit, an hour is pretty damn tight.
Oh, everyone complains about that. John does it in 15 minutes.
That's the point.
I mean, I usually do a quick litmus test in the air and work out whether I think something's going to work. This took a little bit longer.
Just to reassure you on the costs, you had, on both options, you had around 740, I don't know if that's 790, 740, and that was pretty much what John had for the build.
Okay.
So you matched up on that.
You're probably the closest.
The only problem I think I have got on both of them, there's no stamp duty. And I realised after I did it, I sat there, I was like, the first thing I missed, I sat there originally, I wrote on my notes, was I looked at all the photos and it looked like a probate property. And I thought, well, if you're actually going to buying this, trading it, we might be able to claim the SDLT back. But then I thought, actually, the refurbishment cost is going to be far in excess of 10 grand, so we're going to have to pay the SDLT anyway. Then we got to the end and we didn't include it. So there you go. There's a cost of probably about 47 grand, between 35 and 47 grand missing on there.
Also, you tacked your legals and auction costs at the bottom, not in your numbers, didn't you?
I thought.
So when I checked your maths, it was 4.5 grand out, which was those figures that you sort of randomly wrote at the bottom of the page.
Let you off the round.
Well, I picked up the auction pack and I thought, the first bit I looked at it, I was like, well, where's the special conditions?
I wanted to know who was getting the project management 25 grand fee.
Well, I put that down at 5% of the... I had put that down at 5% before all the additional costs onto it, so 5% of the build cost.
And are you getting that or John's getting that?
So, well, on the basis I live in Norwich and this one was out of my area, I thought we might be able to find someone locally and then I can then organise, but there you go.
And can I just double check your contingency is 1.5%?
No, sorry, it should have been 7.5%.
Oh yeah, it's difficult to read your
as I was going through
writing.
I think we had about 2 minutes left to get my numbers down. Okay. I was just scrawling, and as you can see, there's a lot of scrawling.
Yeah.
Some of your competitors didn't actually get to a purchase price, and you managed to come up with 2.
So I'd come up with 2 different ways of analysing it, because usually what I do is, the first time I ever look at a property, I usually do what I call my litmus test, finger in the air, is this roughly going to work? I usually do that on a per square foot basis. And if I think, actually, we're not that far off, then we then go again into the Rightmove kind of side of things and see how it actually compares. So the thing was, with that property being a semi-detached property in the area, it was actually mainly kind of family houses, residents, and larger properties. So most of the time, if you buy a house, you're buying, I don't know, say 1,000, 2,000 square feet in one go. But the actual price is going to be slightly lower, and that's why you get lots of people, obviously get planning, then subdivide, and that's exactly what the planning permission had tried to do on here. If you take a house and you split it down, rather than title split it or split it into separate units, like the planning permission had achieved on this one, then it might be that actually as smaller units, you're going to get a higher end value, because people, when they're looking for their first property, tend to look to buy something that's slightly cheaper, but it's like a wholesaler. If you buy the whole pie, it's going to be cheaper than if you buy all the individual units.
Different premiums, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. So then what I did was I then went on Rightmove. I jumped in and again stuck it on 1/4 mile, nothing, 1/2 mile, and there were a few comparables started coming up from kind of new buildings that have been converted or that kind of style thing. And I thought, actually, here, this is probably where you're getting more of a true value on what the flats are.
And this is a per unit basis, really.
That's on the per unit.
Versus the square footage.
Yeah. And so then what I then did is I quite like I've got lots of different platforms. I use Nimbus and I was using property data at the same time, which is quite good for then grabbing the pound per square foot. But what I then did was just jumped into Rightmove, and you can use the price comparison report, type in the postcode of the property of the area, and you can just bring up everything that's sold in there, everything that's no longer on the market. And so you get a real good idea for what that property might be worth on market.
So you looked up 6 flats, basically.
Yeah. And then I then looked at the 6 flats. And then what I then did is I sat there and thought, well, my per square foot price is quite a bit less. So I probably pulled them back a little bit from where they were, the other ones that were listed online. And I thought that was close to the 2.1 million kind of price. But that was actually, I'd say probably about 2 million. 2.1 was probably about where it would on the per flat basis.
So just a quick question. Did you find out what it sold for?
To be fair, I think I came up and I saw the sold price, but I completely ignored it because I thought there's no point in me looking at this, keep going.
Because it's a coincidence, it's the same as your purchase price.
No way. No, genuinely, I didn't look at that. I just went straight through and I was like, I just kept going. And I was like, there's no need to look at that information because it's not relevant to the
That doesn't
task.
mean it's necessarily market price.
And it's also, it's not necessarily what I would pay for doing something.
The key thing is, John, if you're in front of John and you're quickly explaining to him the nature of the deal, what the build costs would be, which yours are a bit low, and what you would pay, you're here with 2 different figures out by $250,000. Yeah. That's the difficulty. You've got 2 prongs, and he's a busy person. Time is key. Are you saying that this would be a phase 1 check? This is the phase 2 check. Which of these would you have?
So the thing is usually I take more than an hour to do it. So after I've done my litmus test and kind of thought, will this roughly work? Then I dive into it. And that's anything from usually when I do my initial kind of report and digging into it.
Well, he wants you to have appraised it in 15 minutes. If you're working for him, if you win the mentorship, he wants you to be quick about it.
There you go. So but typically I take a little bit longer, but then when I tend to only focus very much on just what I think is going to stack. And so if you actually look at how many properties I purchased last year versus the number of viewings I do, I'd probably say I'm about roughly 1 in 5 properties I view I end up buying. But that's just because I literally go and look at exactly what I want, and I know how the numbers are going to stack before I've gone, so then we're not wasting anyone's time.
How many deals did you do last year?
I think it was about 20, it was between 22 and 28 in units, and by units I mean actual...
Mixed use, etc.
Yeah, so but I mean actual council tax rateable units, not... I've done 28 bedrooms, that doesn't count. In my view.
You still didn't answer the question though. Which one would you actually go with?
So the one that I would go with would be the Rightmove one, because that's actually based on what people are paying in the area.
Yeah. And actually it's not dissimilar to the number John came up with at 624, so you're a little bit above that. Yeah. But no, definitely on the right tracks. Well done. Thank you very much. Thank you for being so thorough, and we'll see how you get on.
Wendy Snedden is 3rd.
So welcome back, Wendy. Here we are in round 2. Talk us through the deal that you had, because it looks a really interesting one, and then we'll kind of get into the numbers and your plans for it.
Yeah, so it's a block of garages and it's got planning permission to convert or to demolish and build 3 4-bedroomed houses.
Talk us through the numbers. So your GDV, you had 2.2 on it, and actually wasn't dissimilar to what John came up with. He was around the kind of the 2.5. So how did you get to that figure?
Okay, so I looked at 3 comparables close by and just worked out a cost per square foot and then added it up.
Okay. And what was the kind of the range on those pound per square foot?
There was one at 925, there was one at 975, and then there was one that was quite low. It was about 800 and something.
Okay. And what did you plump for?
Well, I added them together and went for did an average.
Lovely, lovely. Okay. And so you're quite spot on the GDV, but build cost.
You can throw that out the window.
Okay. We were wondering.
Yeah, I added an extra 0 to my contingency budget, which, because I looked at it and thought, well, this is exciting. But that's the build cost, that's the GDV. It's got to work.
It's not quite worked through on the appraisal sheet.
No, because
we're missing profit and any kind of a purchase price.
Yeah.
Or you're planning to pay 0.
We have a purchase price of 0, which
at the time, but of course it was too late in by the time I'd realised what I'd done wrong. So in actual fact, to get the profit of 30% of 664,000, the build costs are actually at 810.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah, and then you've got other costs of about 118 and then finance costs of 255, which leaves you about 330 to purchase.
That's okay. That's the time pressure and isn't it?
Yeah. And also reliance on spreadsheets when,
Well, there's not only been you has had some spreadsheet errors today, is there, Fiona?
No, definitely not.
That's why we have that calculator on the phone. So we do it all up here.
Yeah. And that's the key thing. I think that, John, we have this technical appraisal round so we can see how you're looking at a deal, how you're appraising it, what your thinking's like, and how quickly you can analyse and process that information.
Sure.
So, some found it more difficult than others.
I was debating between 18 months and then thought you might need to leave 6 months for selling them. But sales they're flying off the shelves in that area. So.
3 units. Do you think they would sell well?
Yeah, definitely.
What were the key risks that you could see in this project?
I didn't have a legal pack. So, and it did mention that there were conditions that you would need to revert it in the legal pack. So they could be a red flag.
Yeah.
They didn't have keys for the garages, so who knows what's in the garages.
Right.
And then obviously when you dig up the ground under the garages as well, there could be issues around that.
Maybe asbestos in the garages.
Yeah.
Do you think this is the best use of that site and the best planning option?
With a bit more time, I could have looked into it because I think 3-bed houses were selling better than 4-bed houses. So whether there was an option to maybe rearrange the configuration and maybe get another house in.
So originally they had a planning for 5 3-beds.
Yeah.
They changed that by turning the site to the 3 4-beds.
Yeah.
So perhaps there was a need for that in the area.
When I looked, it looked like 3 beds were selling better than 4 beds. So I wasn't sure if that was an option. The other thing that showed up was that there's a lack of, there's a really high proportion of van drivers in the area. So potentially the garages could have remained garages and been rented out as storage space, or could have been developed out as sort of a commercial yard.
Whether you could have accessed the leasehold though under those
conditions,
remains to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't get inside them, you don't know the state of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always interesting to be sure that what you're doing is actually the best way to optimise the site.
Yes. Yeah.
So, it's good that you're thinking all.
I don't think you would have got flats in there because it was surrounded by housing.
Well, thank you for talking us through that, and well done on surviving round 2. And we'll see if you make it through to the next round. Okay. Well done.
Now we have Emma Fielding.
Could you just give us a bit of a summary about the deal and what your initial thoughts were?
The actual deal is a freehold vacant. Currently, well, it was a bank, and it's got offices above as well. So it's currently got, well, the ground floor was a bank, and then the 2 floors above are office space. Majority of the office space is actually currently vacant, which gives a good opportunity for opportunity basically for development going down the line. So kind of the first thing that I actually kind of looked at was actually the current office space. I thought it was quite important to actually see what we could do with it just as it is. It is in a very popular area of Southend-on-Sea, right on the high street.
Yeah.
So I thought straight away offices, and then I thought I'd look further from that later down the line. So I actually worked out a couple of figures based on what was kind of on the market currently, and I kind of went from there. So the bank itself, which is the ground floor part, was actually around kind of 4,800 square meters. So I kind of based that on, well,
4,000 meters.
4,000 square feet.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's all right.
4,000 square feet in total. And to kind of get an average of what that would rent for, I actually use kind of Zoopla and Rightmove to get a comparison of actually what has been already let.
For offices?
Yeah, for offices, to see whereabouts that was at. So that was actually, I came up with the figure of 3,800, and that was on a basis of around 3,000 to 4,400 on what they would rent out per month. So that would then give a total rent of around 45,600 on that particular ground floor. And then from there, I then looked at the other 2 floors, and that would then give an average around 1,000 square feet per floor. But there's actually 3 opportunities there for offices. And that, again, I based that on kind of what was already on the market. And again, that was around 1,000 per calendar month, what they could rent at.
From Rightmove and Zoopla?
Yes. Yeah.
So really with commercial, that's not necessarily the go-to places for commercial rents?
No, so I've actually never kind of cost up a commercial aspect. So this was completely new, but I thought my best kind of option was actually to look at kind of Rightmove and Zoopla from there.
Did you Google commercial to let Southend on Sea?
Yes, I did, but it wasn't coming up with kind of what I kind of thought. It was coming up with something that was kind of way out, and I just thought I just literally went with my gut instinct, and I went with what was on kind of Rightmove and Zoopla as it stands currently, and then I kind of took an average from what I thought based on the actual square footage of each level of the office space.
You're on the lower end of what John had worked out the commercial rent could be. He
Yeah.
was more 50, I think, to 70,000.
So I actually did kind of a total of that. So based on the bank at the bottom, that was at 45,600, and then the ones above, that would come at 81,600. So in total, it would be about 108,000.
Oh, okay. No, you're in the high end.
So now I'm probably in the high end. And based on the actual kind of guide price of 700k, that would give a yield of 11%. But let's say because I've actually done my numbers on a higher kind of guide price, I did my guide price on 1 million, but I'll explain that later. And if we were to rent out the actual office space, that would give a yield of 8.1%. But I can go through my kind of option, what I think the best option should be, which would actually to be convert the office 2 floors into apartments. And I've done my analysis on that and my predicted cost price as well.
Yeah, okay. So that's what we've got in front of us here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll probably just run through the numbers with that one. So I did the purchase price to be 1 million based on that.
Well, you've got 700 here.
Yeah, that's an error. So that's 1 million. So obviously slightly higher than the guide price currently at 700. Then I looked at kind of the stamp duty, which is just under 40,000 at 39,500. The planning fees I put in for 20. The construction costs at 800 with a contingency of 15%, which is
this is not what you've written. So your build cost here adds up to 400 on my figures.
Yeah, that is an error, Helen. I just didn't get time to obviously edit what I was writing down on here.
So this is kind of unfinished.
Yeah, that is definitely
due to
unfinished.
time
I wouldn't want to
constraints.
present that to anyone. So yeah, apologies on my part, that is unfinished. But again, I can go through the things in a bit more detail. So in terms of the actual construction costs to do the apartments, I said 40,000 for the studio apartment, which I would kind of look at 7 of them, a 1-bed 60,000 for 4 of them, and then a 2-bed at 80,000. Now, there actually wasn't an internal floor plan with the kind of pack. I did phone up Allsops, but again, time was kind of running out on that one. But yeah, there was nothing on the planning portal either. So I was literally just going off Google Maps and Google just to have a look actually how much we could fit in.
And to be clear, so you've got to go into planning for 12 apartments, 7 studios, a 4-bed and a 2-bed, so
Yes.
15 units.
Yes.
And would that be including converting the ground floor?
No, I would keep the ground floor as the kind of bank that it previously was. So I'd let that out as
Do you mean commercial space?
Yeah, the commercial space, yeah, the old bank.
How much space do you think you've got to fit in 15 units?
Well, what I would want to do, Helen, actually, if you look at the plan, I would like to go up with permitted development and put on a side extension with full planning as well. I do think, kind of looking at my costs, they are a little bit kind of under for what they should be, but that's really kind of where I think the growth is and the development opportunity is on this one.
So John saw 6 1-bed flats in the 3,247 square foot of space.
So you've got more than 2.5 times what he thinks you can get in.
So, which would sell or have a end value of 170,000 each unit.
Yeah, so I actually worked out the end selling values of them. A studio would go for 170, a 1-bed would go for 110, and a 2-bed would go for 260.
Sorry, your studios are going for 170.
Yes, and
each.
And that was based on.
But your 1-bed would go for 110.
No, sorry, the studio would go for 170 and the 1-bed would go for 210.
That was probably not the greatest use of the time that you had, because I think John develops to sell on rather than to think about renting. What kind of leaseholds would you put in place for these?
To be honest, I've not actually dealt with leasehold personally at all.
Like 100 years, 200 years?
Probably around 200, I would say.
Because nowadays really it's 999
Yeah, but yeah, I think it all depends, doesn't it? Depends. I haven't dealt in leasehold options at all. So my background is probably a little bit limited on that.
What's your profit number on this?
My net profit would be 769,000, and that would achieve an ROI of 33%.
What would you pay for that?
I think up to the million mark. It is in a very trendy areas, Southend-on-Sea, very popular. I think there's got a lot of potential. So around up to 1 million, no more than 1 million, I wouldn't be comfortable with.
We've pushed everybody outside their comfort zone, so it's not just you. Don't worry. But well done, Emma.
Thank you.
We'll maybe see you in the next round. Maybe not. You'll find out soon enough.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Emma.
Thanks.
And last up is Michael Ho.
So Michael, welcome back to round 2. But what's going on? Your figures are, a little hard to understand.
Let me explain. So with the property in Surrey, it was a mixed-use property.
Yeah.
3 buildings, of which I only had floor plan, the square footage data for 1 of the 3 buildings. For the other 2, I had to find it through I tried to search through the property portal on the local council website. Unfortunately, the local council website's search feature wasn't working. So I had to try to use the first line of the address, the postcode, and it was only on the 3rd line of the address I actually managed to find something through the planning portal. So managed to pull up the application, found the square footage for the 2nd property.
Yeah.
And then for the 3rd property, it was a bit confusing because I had a whole pack that was, they basically doubled up on the pictures and the floor plan, so I wasn't sure exactly, was this part 1, 2 or 3 of the building?
Okay,
so I had to work backwards from that and then
it was a bank,
found it.
Right?
It was a bank and 2 vacant properties.
Okay.
But the bank had planning permission,
Correct.
so you could have gone.
Exactly. So what I did do here is just did the planning permission for the first and second floor, which was already granted. So I wanted to work from a micro scale, just work on what has already been granted, and then build out from thereafter. So what I've done here is, so after finally getting the floor plans, which took the best part of probably half an hour, I managed to, if you just look at the bottom right-hand corner,
Yes.
so I figured out that the total floor plan was roughly around 5,227
Across all of them.
across all three. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and then that was a purchase price for 950, and then just for the floor plan for the first and second floor, that was 1,371. So what I did was 1,371 times by 950 divided by 5,227, and then that is how I got to the 250,000 figure. So that is the initial purchase price for just the first and second floor of the property that has already got planning permission. So that's how I got to the 250.
You're confusing purchase price and GDV?
That's the initial purchase price for the property. So GDV is further down on the sheet I've got.
So GDV, where's the GDV? You've written 250,000.
Yeah,
But you
I should have
actually mean
crossed
the
that
purchase
GDV.
price.
Yeah, exactly. I should have put down purchase price. I should
Okay.
have crossed that out. Yeah. I'll get to the GDV part, which is further down on the sheet itself. So yeah, purchase price for just the first and second floor, 250,000. Stamp duty around 4%, which comes to 10k. Build cost. So in the past, all builds that I've done is typically on an individual basis as opposed to square footage. So I estimated the square footage for the build cost here to be around 170 per square feet. Probably a bit too much then. And the build cost here ended up coming to 233,000, which is well above anything that I would have paid for 2 flats. Then I also added a 5% construction contingency, which comes to around 11,654. I've noted down the square footage there.
Seems like a low contingency to me.
Yeah.
11,000.
Yeah, normally I'll do 10%, but then I saw how high the build cost was already, that I thought, okay, it probably doesn't make sense, but I just wanted to show that I've got some thought into having a contingency in place, at least anyway. So the professional fees around 0.5%, which ends up coming to around 2,000. Interest, I put it at 10%, which interest on the whole build, which would come to 123,995.
And what's the time frame on that?
I said 1.5 years.
Okay.
So total project costs would have been 485,000. Total project cost with the interest would come to 533,000. And then for the GDV, after looking at some sold data as well as selling data, I found that the GDV per square footage is around £334 per square foot. And then I multiplied the 334 by the 1,371. So this NGDV for the 2 floors would have come to 457,914.
But what you're seeing on your screen there is not the same as what's laid out on the appraisal sheet.
No, yeah. It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're just throwing numbers out, and Helen's probably good at catching them in her head and transposing them.
No, Helen's completely lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am
So
too.
what happened? So the top half is all of the construction work for first and second floor, and the bottom half was the construction work for if it was to be done as the whole building instead.
The three,
But there's
sites,
three
buildings.
Exactly. Yeah. It's because it took me a while to find out the total square footage for the third.
But you didn't need
building.
to find that out on the old bank chambers because it already had planning consents. You could have just worked with the unit values, potentially.
Yeah, but that was after.
And did
I
you
had to
consider
struggle to
maybe
find it.
one of the units? It was interesting they put all 3 together. Clearly they would have been probably on separate titles. You may or may not have had time to quickly check land registry, but either way, could have been split into 3 titles. Optimising, say, 37 Station Road and just getting, selling that on quickly, you might have got $500,000 in or so on and so forth to get some of your funds back.
Exactly, yeah. I'll consider that point, as well as the fact that one of the 3 buildings was already currently renting out. So you would have been cash flowing, I think it was around just over 31,000. So yeah, that would have helped with the interest costs.
The GDV you have for the 3 units, the 3 buildings is?
I didn't get to that point because, again, I wanted to go from a micro level for just 2 floors up to the micro level afterwards.
Is that why there's no purchase price?
Correct, yeah.
And
just so you know what John had, he's got a GDV of 2.28 million. What he would have paid was 1.2 million. Michael, you had a stab at it, so we know it's very pressurised.
If it wasn't for the first part of having to dig around for the floor plan, maybe I could have just made some assumptions based on what the other previous given floor plans were, and then just worked off that. I reckon I could have displayed my skills a lot more eloquently on the piece of paper, but because I got bogged down, literally gave about half an hour just trying to find the exact floor plan, because in my Excel sheet I've based all of my construction cost off square footage, so I wanted to get as close to John's figure as possible in the end. But again, hindsight is 20/20, isn't it?
Indeed. Well done.
Also, if you can find the EPCs, they have the square footage on them.
Oh.
By the address.
Oh wow. Okay, that's good to know.
You know that for next time.
All
right. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
So tell me, how did it go, and you know, what's your view?
Well, there were certainly some that grabbed the task and ran with it, but a lot of them struggled with it. And given that they were instructed to come up with a purchase price, many of them didn't.
That is so disappointing.
Let's start with James.
James, okay, a very, very nice man.
Yeah.
A gentle soul.
Yeah.
Whether he's a bit too gentle for me, I'm not sure. Is he going to be robust? How did he get on in the task?
I think he had some discomfort in the fact that the deal was outside of his area and the numbers to use.
Why on earth should that be a problem?
Well, it shouldn't. So
he had one of the more challenging deals to look at, but he wasn't comfortable kind of with the development costs of the area. So he's certainly got his kind of preference for the area that he likes to deal in.
And there's nothing wrong with having a specialist area,
no.
to be fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, I buy all over the UK. Who should we go to next? Fiona, who do you want to go to next?
We can pick a lady, Kelly.
Yes, Kelly, nice lady.
Yeah.
Not that experienced.
She's got some investment property already.
Yeah, she has.
Somewhat of a simple deal, if I could call it simple. She spent, I felt, a lot of time appraising the area, the schools. Also did a rental assessment, which wasn't asked for.
No, but you know, you have to say there's nothing wrong with being thorough. And some of the simple deals are the best. You know, I love doing a simple deal. The fact is, they're hard to make the margin on a simple deal normally.
But she didn't come up with a purchase price.
Oh,
no.
Kelly.
But I did like the fact that Kelly looked at a couple of other options aside from the 2 semis.
Yes.
She considered putting another property on the site. She was thinking it through.
So she didn't get the final price, which is disappointing. But on the other hand, you know, I think I could work with her.
Daniel.
Yes. What do we think of Daniel?
I mean, he's a great personality, full of enthusiasm. I think he could talk his way out of a paper bag, but another one that didn't come up with a number.
What I like about Daniel is he reminds me of some of my friends who are property developers. Now, they're old-fashioned property developers. You know, they wouldn't have a spreadsheet. They wouldn't know what a spreadsheet was, but they've got that personality. They've got that charisma. You know, they can walk in somewhere and talk to people and so on. And that is a skill in itself.
True.
And not everyone's got that.
Yeah.
Tristan, well, I know him because he was on Property Elevator and he didn't get funded that day.
No. But such a likeable guy.
Likeable man.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to turn up at a meeting with a banker with him in that shirt. You know, and actually, you might laugh, but I mean, if he's going to wear that shirt all the time, what is the story with that?
Well, maybe don't take him to the bank meetings, but send him out looking for deals, because he did tell us he did 28 deals last year.
Yeah.
He did fluff his numbers though, and he did his finance costs without including
That's
the purchase
perhaps how
price.
he's done 28 deals last year, because half of them he shouldn't have bought. Who knows if he didn't get his figures right.
But what Tristan did that some of the others didn't do, Tristan came up with 2 sets of numbers. So where some didn't manage one number, he actually managed two and gave
so
two illustrations.
You like him then, don't you?
Well,
Okay.
he did what was asked of him.
And one of those was very close to your
Yeah,
numbers.
it was.
Okay. So Tristan has done a good job today, you would say.
Even if you don't like his shirt. Hamish.
Hamish, smiling Hamish.
Yeah.
From Barcelona.
It was obvious he's kind of new to this.
Yeah.
But he put in a good effort. He came up with a number. He did what was asked of him. And he has the likability.
He has the likability.
He really does.
He has the likability. I can see him as an upmarket estate agent working in Mayfair, to be honest with you.
Yes, I can.
Honestly, I can
yeah,
see.
yeah.
I can see because he's got that real likability,
Yes,
that bit of suaveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about Emma? Emma with a hat. Yeah.
Yes.
Very experienced. How did she perform today?
Struggled with the numbers, I'm afraid.
She missed the slight complexity of the bill, double yellows and that sort of thing. She hadn't really looked at that. She also missed a valuation on the commercial, but I think she really realised that she'd made a mistake there. So I think genuinely it was a fluff, so to speak, and I think that she wouldn't really make that mistake in round 3 necessarily.
No. Michael, yes. How did he do?
He struggled today, in all honesty. He's another one who didn't come up with a number, and he didn't actually come up with a GDV either. So
I thought he was a very bright young man.
I think the problem was that he got too bogged down in the detail. So if you want somebody with attention to detail, it's him. But he definitely needed longer to look at that.
Neil, yes, Neil, very experienced.
He's very experienced, and that showed today.
Well,
Calm and confident.
It should have done as well, to be fair.
Yes.
Yeah, calm, confident, had a well-researched and thought-out appraisal. It all added up.
Yep.
A little too optimistic. Maybe the estate agent.
He's an estate agent. What do you expect? The day's always sunny. Every day's a sunny day with an estate
Neil's
agent.
day was definitely sunny.
Yeah, it was always sunny. So,
but he could answer. He answered every question.
Yeah.
He came with pages of notes. An hour did not. He could have done that in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's what I'm talking about. Wendy, all the way from Scotland. She got up again at 3 o'clock this morning. Already does some deals in Scotland.
Yeah. She made a fundamental error in the numbers, but she realised she had done. So actually she did come up with a purchase price of 0. But she knew what she'd done. And even though she recovered, she answered everything well, right? And she's lovely.
I do think she could be a steady Eddie. I think potentially she's methodical.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I got with her.
And that leaves
Emma.
Young Emma from Barnsley, who again, I thought in the first round was a very strong contender. So is she still a strong contender, Fiona?
It's difficult. I think she struggled with the deal that she was given to appraise.
What was she given? She was given a shops and
Southend
on Sea,
shops and some flats above.
with offices. And,
well, pretty standard sort of small standard deal we would do, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she did say she hadn't analysed a commercial to resi before. So, but they were all out of their comfort zone. So that doesn't really wash with me.
No. We've got a bit of thinking to do. I've got a bit of thinking to do.
It's not straightforward.
It's not straightforward, is it? They're all talented.
Yeah.
It's just a case of which one can find me deals. Thank you all so much for coming today. I know it's been a long, long day. Some of you will be going home disappointed, I'm sure, perhaps with your own performances, and 3 of you will be delighted, no doubt, to be going through to the final. James, would you like to come forward, please? I've spoken, obviously, to Fiona and Helen about your performance today, and you seem to struggle out of your area, which, you know, some people specialise in a certain area, that's fine, but for me, I buy all over the UK, and I need someone who I can rely on in every area of the UK. I'm not saying you won't get there, but at the moment I don't think you're ready, so you won't be going to the last 3, but thank you very much for coming today. Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah. Well done.
Good job.
Neil, would like to come forward. This is a very difficult decision for me, Neil, because you're very experienced compared to virtually everyone else here. And I've got to balance up whether there are people here with more potential than you have. You're already there, really, being an estate agent for many, many years, very successful estate agent. But I've decided, having spoken to Fiona, that we're going to put you through to the final. So well done, congratulations. Hamish, do come forward. I see you as a very upmarket Mayfair estate agent, which is a compliment, by the way, because they're smooth, they're industrious, and they can handle and deal with any client. And that's how I see you. I don't think you're experienced enough to go through to the final three at the moment. I think if you came back next year, you may well be in the final three. But for today, I'm afraid it's a no.
Okay.
So, Kelly, come forward. And I think this time you've done a good job. However, I don't think the job that you've done has been fantastic. I think you need, again, a bit more experience. But that shouldn't put you off, because you're already investing, you're already doing things. I just think today perhaps it was one step too far for you at the moment. So I won't be putting you through, but well done, because I think you've come a long way in a few weeks. Daniel, come forward, please. Everyone likes a cheapy chappy. A bit of cheekiness and charisma can get you a long way in the property business. Probably not as far now as it used to, because in the old days, no one had spreadsheets or anything else, to be honest with you. And now it's all very technical and all the rest of it. I don't think you did a bad job today, but I'm afraid not good enough to go through to the final. But I wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Michael, step forward. Sounds to me you had a bit of a nightmare today, Michael, and I think you know what I'm going to say because of that. I had great hopes for you. I could see you in the final, but you've had a bad day today. A bad day at the office. It happens to everyone. I'm not saying it doesn't, but unfortunately you've had a bad day on the wrong day, and I'm afraid you're not going through to the last three.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Wendy, all the way from Scotland. I saw you after the first round as potential to be in the final. However, today did not go well. Fiona and I think also Helen were both disappointed with what happened, and unfortunately because of that I have no option but to send you flying back to Scotland, and I'm very sorry to do so. But I'll be up in Scotland soon, and I'd very much like to take you for lunch. The last three. How many have I chosen?
Only one so far.
One.
One of you is not through to the final. The other two are. Emma, if you'd like to step forward. I'm afraid today, Emma, you've got lots of experience, lots of energy, lots of enthusiasm, and I think you should have done better today than you did. It's not easy, I know, you're under pressure, you've got cameras and lights on you, but I'd love to see you here next year, but unfortunately you won't be going through to the final three. But thank you. The pair of you, Emma especially, is very lucky to be in the last three, and you need to step up your game, big time.
Just come in, don't worry.
It needs to, Emma. Tristan, you did a good job. I think your figures were actually the same as mine.
Yeah.
I know, who would have thought that? So, congratulations to both of you. We'll see you in the final. Please bring me a good deal each, especially you, Emma, because you are the fortunate one today. So well done, you're in the final. Get prepared.
So there you have it. Thanks to Helen and Fiona's eye for detail, John now has his 3 final contestants who will go through to the final round called The Deal. So in the next episode, we'll see Emma, Neil and Tristan present a deal to John, which they think would be right up his street. Will he be impressed? And who will he choose to become Property Graduate 2022? Tune in to the next episode to find out.